Welcome back to another episode of From the Nosebleeds. I'm Joey Gunnar here with Trent Finnegan, talking about a really fun conversation that we get to have going into what should be great matchup for the Broncos up against the Jets. So who will be the X-Factor in that Broncos game? It's exciting, Trent. We get to sit here in a similar position that the Eagles were in last week, where we're talking about how this should be more of an easy win than what we've seen in prior weeks. And looking at what we're seeing going forward against the Jets, there's a lot of different players that could be the X factor here. I mean, there's a lot of different guys that could get out there and make a real impact on on both sides of the ball for the Broncos. I mean, it should be a really great game overall. I'm not seeing, first of all, I'm not seeing a loss here at all. Are you seeing any signs that could be pointing towards an L for the Broncos?
No, I don't. I'm not seeing a loss on this one. The Jets have just shown too many flaws this season, and the Broncos. People say it could be a trap game. Bo Nix actually just spoke in London after Broncos wrapped up their practice. I guess this afternoon. I want to say this morning because they're however many hours ahead. But yeah. He talked about the trap game aspect. He said, look, we know the talk. No trap game. We're just going here taking care of our business. So they seem very grounded to earth. They seem like they know what they need to do, and I expect them to go out there and do it because this Jets team is not as good as that Eagles team they played last week, and they're not going to be.
That's to put it lightly.
They're probably one of the worst opponents on the schedule. Them and the Bengals 2 weeks ago. So
I mean, they're 0-5. I mean, if the Broncos are the first one to go in the win column for the Jets, I will. All of the glory that happened with that win this past weekend against the Eagles will fly right out of the window. Because if you can go and beat the Eagles, but you can't beat the 0-5 Jets, then you got bigger things to worry about. But exactly. I don't want to sit here talking about what could be a loss. I want to sit and talk about who's going to be the winner that comes out there, because this is going to be a team that the Broncos can just eat up. The Jets have allowed the second most points in the league. And funny enough, they're only one spot higher or below, I guess, for most points allowed than the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have allowed the most points in the league. Just crazy to think about that. I mean, this is a team that people had going to the Super Bowl before the season started, and now they're looking like one of the worst teams in the league. But the Jets just keep getting they're getting teared up everywhere. It's really bad what this team is. It's not a great team at all. And Justin Fields, gotta love the guy, but not the answer over there. And this will be one of the best opportunities for the Broncos to, rack up some stats, get out there and start boosting their numbers up. And that will come with what's likely to be a singular player. In these big games, you don't see the ball. You don't really see Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims having 150 yards each. You just don't. You can see one of those guys going out there and really putting up some crazy stats. And I see that guy being Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims looks like he's going to be the one to be the X factor. I mean, you look around this team and what they're facing up against the Jets. You got a good cornerback in Sauce Gardner. And when he's lined up against Courtland Sutton, that's going to be the time for Bo Nix and Marvin Mims to feast on those deep balls that just break the coverage way down low. I would not be surprised if we saw a 70-yard touchdown in this game. And that's because of what Marvin Mims can do when he's wide open and spaced downfield.
Yeah, Marvin Mims, we saw last year, they really opened it up late in the season with him, kind of giving them those opportunities deep. And that's why they went out and got him. He's a great punt returner. He's a great kick returner. But you need some guy with that blazing speed to take the top off. Courtland Sutton's great. Obviously, we know he's the number one guy. He's Bo Nix's safety blanket, like we talked about yesterday. But he doesn't have that blazing speed to go over the top. And Mims has that. And when you can utilize that against a secondary that's been getting torn up all season long, I think the Broncos got to give them 2, maybe 3 shots on Sunday just to see. Because, look, good things happen a lot of the time when they do those deep balls to Marvin Mims. And you might get an interception. You got Sauce Gardner on the other side. You got some decent players. But I think it's worth the risk. You got to give him some shots over top and see if you can get a 70-yarder, get an 80-yarder, and really open the game up.
Yeah, and if we remember last year, around this time, that's when we saw Bo Nix's confidence really come into play. That's when we saw him in his rookie season look like the future of this franchise. And, started off kind of slow again, but way better than what they were last year in terms of, record and how Bo Nix is playing. They look like a much better team. So Yeah, I'd expect some quick shots and deep shots to Marvin Mims. I expect him to get started early, and then they're going to be targeting him often. And once he breaks that first, secondary coverage, once he really breaks downfield for that first time, it's going to come down to one person, and that means Bo Nix is going to have to not overthrow the ball. That's something that we've kind of gotten used to here throughout the first couple of weeks, but we've seen a lot of overthrows, especially in that Chargers game. We saw a couple against the Eagles, or at least one that was really glaring, but will he be able to connect? I mean, I sure hope so. And that would really do something for the team if he can finally get out and go forward and really connect on a deep ball with Marvin Mims. I mean, we saw it so many times last year. We can expect to see it again this year. I mean, it's going to be one of those games where Marvin Mims could just go out and ball out. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And also another thing too is look for Troy Franklin as well. He's also got that blazing speed. And if they like tried to get him going against the Colts, and he led the team in catches and yards, and he had the touchdown, I'm pretty sure. And then he's just been pretty dormant after that game. So I wonder if maybe they try and get Mims and Franklin. Maybe they just go for one of them. But if you can't get Mims going, you've got another speedster in Franklin, and he's a lot bigger than Mims too. He's got a bigger frame than him. So maybe you can go Franklin as well. I don't know. But one of those two receivers has got to have a big day alongside of Sutton, I think.
Yeah. I mean, those two guys are, of course, just playing, pretty well. But once they really have a game that gets them going, we can expect something great happening to this team, because they've got a very solid wide receiver room. You look around the league at the teams who have the best wide receiver rooms. You hear about the Bengals, you hear about the Eagles, you hear about the Vikings. Those three teams, of course, have outstanding wide receivers. But the Broncos, talk about Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Evan Ingram right there. That's a very solid receiving room. And surrounded by Bo Nix, if he can just really get into that flow that, again, we saw later in the season last year, we can see something great coming out of this team. And Evan Ingram is one of those people, when we're talking about tight ends, he's one of those people that we could really see go out there and make a big difference. I mean, what we saw from him last week was a little bit of a wake-up game. He was really dormant through his first couple weeks. Of course, he wasn't really meshing as well as people had hoped him to right off the bat. But after a big game with the Eagles, he could be one of those guys that we see ball out against the Jets. We could see something incredible from him. I mean, predict what we could maybe see from Evan Ingram if Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin aren't the guy.
I think you got to get him at least 6 targets. He finally seemed to get some traction going last week. I think that Lucas Kroll injury, he went to IR after the Bengals game. That Lucas Kroll injury is really big, because now it's just really Ingram and Troutman in that receiver room. And we all know, like, Troutman's been a favorite of Sean Payton, but he's more of that inline, gets good blocks type of tight end. When Ingram, you can line him up on the line, and you can line him up at the slot receiver. You could really move him around a lot. So, I mean, he's got 7 targets against Cincinnati, and then he got 6 targets against Philadelphia. So you see they're starting to get him more involved. Mm-hmm. And you saw against Philadelphia, he could, when he ran that crosser over the middle, it's really hard for a linebacker to pick up an inline tight end in man coverage and follow him across the field on just those right at the sticks, kind of 10-ish yards crossing route. So I think if they kind of use him more east and west, just because, you try and cross people up, run some mesh concepts, run some shallow cross concepts, maybe some drive. I just think that he's too quick and he's too talented for some of these linebackers to cover. And, it's not like I'm not expecting him to have 6 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. I mean, 6 catches and 55 yards is still good, because that means he's moving the sticks. You don't need to target him 20 yards down the field. You need to target him 3 yards down the field. That's why you brought him in here, because he's so good after the catch.
Yeah.
You don't need to scheme him open deep. Just run him on that quick drag, give him the ball, get him in space, and let him cook.
Yeah, I mean, let him be the Joker that Sean Payton was saying. I mean, we heard him say it all offseason that Evan Ingram is the Joker. Let him be the Joker. Just get out there, give him the ball a couple times. Let him do what he does. His physical ability is outstanding. So watching what he might be able to do if he just gets a couple of those little 3-yard short passes and then has the ability to run the ball right up the middle against those linebackers, because not only is he fast and quick, it can evade some of that. He's a big guy. I mean, that's not an easy challenge to go out and tackle that guy right in the middle. Now, if you got 3 people on him right there, but you get him past the right hash when he's running from the left and he's going right to the sidelines, let him see what he could do right there. Because I mean, wow, that could be great, because we could just see his run after catch ability rather than what he can do when you're just giving the ball right when he's in coverage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But those guys on offense will be what we hope to see the most targeted, at least the most efficient in their targets. But on defense, this is going to be one of those games where I'm seeing Nick Bonito have another outstanding day. I mean, what we've seen from him so far has been nothing less than a DPOY candidate. Going up against the Jets teams that's 0-5, you got Justin Fields in the backfield, who obviously loves to run around and can't really get the ball out of his hands quick enough. This might be a game where we're seeing 2-3 sacks out of Nick Bonito. As crazy as it may seem, this might be one of those games where he just goes out and has an incredible day on the defensive end. Is he going to be the defensive X factor, do you think, or is there somebody else we should be watching?
I think it's going to be Zach Allen, which would open the door for Nick Bonito to get another multiple sack game. But, I mean, we're in the same neighborhood. The Jets, 25th worst in the league. They allow 3.2 sacks per game. For comparison, the Broncos are second. They only allow 1 sack per game. Yeah. And you said it's mostly Justin Fields. He struggles to kind of get to his third read, and he'll just tuck his head and he'll look to run. But when you have a team or you have a front four like the Broncos have, where you have Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers who can make a dent in the pocket. Sean Payton, that's what Sean Payton said this morning. He was talking after practice. He's like, somebody asked him about John Franklin Myers. Like, I love how he can make a dent in the pocket. He doesn't need to get the sack, but if he can make that dent, it forces the opposing quarterback to have to spin out. And that's when Bonito and then Jonathan Cooper on the other side can rack up the sack numbers. So I think that Zach Allen is going to be the X factor just because he can eat those double teams and he can force Fields back. And if he's able to do that, then I think Bonito will be able to reap the benefits of that. So I agree with you. I think Bonito's due for another multi-sack game. He's on pace for 24 sacks, I'm pretty sure, and the NFL record is
just ridiculous.
NFL record is 22.5, and it's Strahan in 01 and TJ Watt in 2021. So yeah. I know he's going to play an extra game, and people think that's weird with the record books. But, hey, 24 sacks is 24 sacks. So, but, yeah, I think Bonito and the rest of that pass rush unit is set up to have a big day against Fields and the Jets.
Yeah, and one thing that I believe we'll see a couple times is when that dent happens in the pocket, we're going to see a real rookie mistake out of Justin Fields. And this is something that you see out of him often because of the faith that he has in his legs. And that's leaving out of the back door, right out of the back of the pocket, which is the number one thing most coaches will tell you never to do when you're talking about a quarterback. Don't leave out the back door, especially not when somebody like Nick Bonito is going to be chasing you down, because that's going to lead from what could have been a 6-yard sack to a 15-yard sack. And that's going to happen a couple times in this game if they can really make a dent in that pocket. It'll be a great game overall, though, for the Broncos. I mean, this is a real good game, again, to pat your stats, look around the league, look at who has the best numbers everywhere. You could see right now the Broncos in points allowed, they're second in the league. If they have another great game against the Jets where they're not allowing more than 10 points, let's say, they could be first in the league with points allowed, because they've just been so, stout at making sure that the defense out there is looking like the defense that we were promised in the offseason. They've gone out there and they've really made themselves a name. They've done everything that we've hoped for coming into this season. And looking around what the Broncos are going to do in this game, it's not going to just be one guy. This is going to be a game where you're seeing a big performance from a lot of people. J.K. Dobbins is going to be out there getting a lot of touches. Who else are you seeing that could be really impactful in this game?
So you brought up J.K. Dobbins, and that makes me look towards the offensive line, actually. And I'm looking at Matt Pert is a name that a lot of Broncos fans might not know. Ben Powers, he underwent bicep surgery the other day. He's out till at least December. I don't know. I think that's usually a death sentence for O-linemen, so I would be surprised if he's out for the season. December seems a little optimistic. That would be great if he comes back. But looking for Matt Pert to step up in his place. And this is a Jets defense that has allowed a 99, almost 100 yards, 99-plus yard rusher in 3 of their 5 losses so far. So I think if the Broncos offensive line, which has been one of the strongest units in the NFL this season, I think that if they can kind of get going with Pert and act like they don't miss a step with him replacing Powers, I think that'll set up Dobbins for a big day. They brought Pert back. He's been in the building before. They brought him back this offseason because they like what he brings as a backup, and they know what they're going to get out of him. So if he can start strong and if he can kind of just mesh right into this offensive line group, I think that'll be big. That'll set up Dobbins to have another 100-yard game, which the Jets have been very susceptible to. And I think that then if the Broncos are able to run the ball, that'll open up the passing game for those deep shots to Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin that we talked about earlier. It's just the Sean Payton offense, when everything fires on all cylinders, it just works perfectly with each other. So get Dobbins going, sets up the pass game, then that can get Ingram going intermediate, that can get Franklin, that can get Mims going deep. So
yeah. I mean, call out an O lineman. That's got to be the best feeling for an O lineman. You're hearing about X factors around the game. Who's going to be the X factor? We're bringing up a O lineman. Yeah, no, I love that. But we should move on because we got to see a great game last night, and it wasn't football. We got to see something other than Rockies baseball and Broncos football. The Avalanche are back. Started the season so hot with a huge 4-1 win over the Kings in LA. It was a late game. I'm not going to lie. I didn't stay up for all of it. It was very late and I was tired. So that's the only excuse I have. But a huge 4-1 win over the Kings, starting the season hot. And the Kings are not necessarily a scrub team. Like, this is a solid team. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going out there to win the Stanley Cup, but the Avs look like a team that is making a Stanley Cup run. I mean, you start the season with a 4-1 win. You got people talking about you, man. Like, it's all over the place. And wow. I mean, what we saw to them was just great. There's so many different facets of the game. And first things first, you got to point out the goalie play. Only allowing one goal. Scott Wedgwood, 24 saves, one allowed. That's a .960 save percentage. Incredible numbers from Scott Wedgwood. Is there maybe going to be a little conversation about him taking over for Blackwood? Because Wedgwood, every time he's come in, has been incredible.
Oh, he's been phenomenal. And he should have gotten the shutout last night. I felt bad for him. That last goal snuck in right at the end of that third period. So, But still, 1 goal, 24 saves. I mean, he was rock solid. And the Kings had some high danger chances. Avs turned the puck over a couple times in their own zone. And there was, I think, 2 big breakaways where like a Nathan MacKinnon or a Cale Makar would put that puck in the back of the net easy. Wedgwood, calm as can be, deflects it to the side, trusts his defense to get it and clear it out. So I thought he was phenomenal. He showed last season that he's one of the best backup goalies in the league. And I think that that's so important as a backup goaltender. You saw the Avs in 2022 with Pavel Francouz. When he came in the playoffs, he had that shutout when Darcy Kemper was injured. So having a backup goaltender is so important. Still not sure when Mackenzie Blackwood is set to return. Bednar was a little flaky with it. I don't know the right term.
I guess it's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, on Monday, he was like, well, he's not traveling. We need him here to rehab. So it seems like he's like kind of close, but we're probably going to be rocking with Wedgwood for the next couple of games. But I don't know if it's going to spark any goalie discussion, like of who should start. No. Obviously, we got to see how Blackwood looks after this surgery that he underwent in his recovery. Because if he's not the same, then we can have a conversation. I think it just goes to show the Woodshed, best goalie tandem in the league, man. Blackwood and Wedgwood, the Woodshed is one of my favorite nicknames in all of sports. So.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and they're great. And it's times like this to go back to a year ago and remember when it was Justus Annunen and just be happy. You just got to be a little bit happy knowing that you can put Wedgwood in and he's pitching a shutout, basically. I'm gonna give him a little bit of credit for a shutout there because .960, 1 goal right at the end of the third period. It feels a lot like a shutout. But the other guy that really showed up, another mid-season last year acquisition, Marty Necas, looked incredible yesterday. I mean, playing up to that contract, looking real good, getting some great shots in thanks to Nathan MacKinnon, who set him up for a great one at that one point. But Marty Necas had himself a day, 2 goals. Wow. I mean,
and he just looks smooth. That first goal, like you said, MacKinnon just set him up in the slot. And I think what really stuck out to me was the patience on his shots last night. A lot of people kind of get that puck in the slot and they look around, they see it, nobody's around, they just fire it. he just gets it on his tape, kind of scoots a little to the right, fires it over the shoulder of Kemper, no rush. And that second goal, right off the face-off on the ozone power play, or ozone face-off on the power play, excuse me. And they swing it over to him, and he just calm, takes his time, fires it up into the top corner.
Yeah.
That looked like a guy who wants a contract extension, you think? He needs a contract extension, and we're slowly going towards another Mikko Rantanen situation with him, thanks to Chris McFarland. But I don't know how you see that performance last night and you don't give him – I've heard the numbers around $10 million, but if he's going to play like that alongside Mackinnon, you got to lock him up. He's only 26. Only 26. You got to keep him in Denver for the foreseeable future. And I really think he earned himself a contract last night.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing people keep forgetting is he's young. Like, he's got a lot to show still. And, I mean, just an incredible performance right out of the gates. First game of the season, and he's looking like one of the best players on the ice. But one thing that we can't forget about here, talking about this, it was all over ESPN everywhere. I couldn't skip it. Like, I couldn't see it not posted. But the Josh Manson fight, you saw that. It was incredible. I mean, what the heck? He laid out Warren Foegele and then got laid out almost himself by Jeff Malott. And I mean, watching the broadcast, I heard them so many times. Jeff Malott's brother is an MMA fighter. That's cool. But Manson hung in there after taking a huge swing right off. I mean, like, it didn't even look like he was ready for the fight yet. And he almost got laid out, spun him around, rung his bell. He was seeing stars, but just that's the energy you want from the Avs. Just laid out Warren Foegele. I mean, one of the biggest hits we'll probably see all season, and it came in game 1.
Oh yeah, and that's just the manimal for you, Josh Manson. And you brought up how he wasn't ready for that fight, which I think he still ended up pinning Malott on the ice at the end.
Yeah.
But Landeskog was pretty irritated with Malott because he's like, you got to square up. You got to square up, drop the gloves. Like, we all love fighting in this league. We got to do it ethically. Like, Malott just kind of came up and ripped his shoulder pad, like kind of caught him off guard. He came straight off the bench. It was super weird.
It was really weird.
And then it cost his team power. I mean, the Avs didn't capitalize, but then he gave the Avs a power play by doing that. So it was just not a smart decision by Malott at all. And it ended up with him getting pinned down on the ice. And if people weren't fired up about hockey season being back, just go watch that 2-3 minutes of just the monster hit, and it was a perfectly clean hit. And the fight after was just chef's kiss. Great start to the hockey season.
Yeah. It's like, the rules. You got to drop your gloves, square up. He dropped his gloves when he's all the way half the ice, basically. Like, he's all the way across the ice. He's dropping his gloves running up there. I mean, luckily it ended out in Manson's favor with him pinning him down on the ground, but this isn't wrestling. We all know kind of basically won that fight with that huge hit, but still overall great. Makar and Mackinnon making some great plays. We saw a couple of them. Arturi Lehkonen getting in the goal because Nathan McKinnon's pushing it up to Cale Makar, who just slices and dices his way through the defense and then drops it off after a shot to Arturi Lehkonen. A great shot from him. And that's really just what we know about Makar and Mackinnon. These guys are going to make plays. And they were doing that all night. I mean, really great play from those two guys who you expect to be the leaders on this team. Just overall, amazing play from everyone on the squad. We're seeing Nate just show out, getting 2 goals. We're seeing Nathan MacKinnon 2 assists. Overall, just great. And MacKinnon, we can't forget about this, sets the franchise record for the Avs for the most points. Probably the biggest news all night, but 1,017 total after his 2 assists last night. Are we seeing what are we seeing from Nathan MacKinnon? Are we seeing him become one of the greatest players of all time? I mean, he's looking like, you hear the comparisons of Nikola Jokic and Nathan MacKinnon, but what we saw last night was just incredible. And he now has set himself into that standard where he is not only the face of this franchise, but one of the faces of the all-time franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, he looked rusty last night, which is kind of crazy to say. There were quite a few times where he kind of did his thing where he chops his feet and then he just flies past everybody, and he lost the puck a couple times, and then there was a shot attempt where he was a little wide on it. Another one hit the skate of a defender. I don't even think that was close to his best game, and yet he's still skating circles around the Kings. He's setting his teammates up with great opportunities to score. I mean, he's definitely on the Avalanche Mount Rushmore. He's close to the Denver Sports Mount Rushmore. I think he's going to need another cup to kind of get on that Mount Rushmore. But this is one of, and it sucks. The Mount Rushmore thing, it feels like you have to narrow it to 4, and it's so tight. He's one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in this city. I mean, he's so fast. He's so dynamic with the puck. He is one of the most entertaining guys in the National Hockey League, and he can score, he can assist, he can literally do anything you need him to do on the ice. There were a couple games in the playoffs last year where he was trying to just put the team on his back and will them to victory. It's amazing, and it's only game 1. And like I said, he looked kind of rusty, and Nate just said the whole team seemed a little rusty at the start. So if he's going to start the season like this, maybe we're going to see another Hart Trophy come back to the Mile High City.
Yeah, if Rusty is 2 assists and you win 4-1, I don't want to see what clean looks like, because wow. No, I take that back. I want to see it as bad as I can. Like I want to see that more than anything in the world. I want to see this team putting up. If that's Rusty, then we should be expecting 8 goals a game. I mean, really incredible play all the way around. But I want to move on to our final topic of the day. And this is a new segment that we've come up with, Waiver Wire Wednesday. We're going to be looking around the league. And this is really going to be great for our fantasy football guys out there, because we're going to be looking around the league and picking out some players that we think we could see pop off this weekend. And I'll just start. But one guy that I've been watching all season long, and people have heard the name, and people have heard 2 names here, and that's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill. Bill on the Washington Commanders has been kind of showing out this season. He's coming off of a huge week against the Chargers, rushing for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now he's going up against the Bears this week, who have the 29th worst run defense in the league. So I'm not necessarily saying trade for him, but if you have him in a fantasy league, you better be feeling pretty good about this weekend coming up. And then moving on, another guy, Rachaad White. That's another running back that I've got out here. Likely filling in for Bucky Irving one more week for the 2nd game in a row. And last game, he rushed for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also adding 4 catches for 30 yards. That guy's great. I mean, I really love him. Maybe it's just because I've got him on my team, but if you've got him out there, look around. Big game expected for him this weekend. And then my last guy is Teteroa McMillan. He's averaging 8.6 targets per game, and he's coming off of a 73-yard performance against the Dolphins. He looks likely to get in the end zone for the first time in his career against the 32nd ranked Cowboys secondary. Trent, do you want to go through your players that you've picked for this weekend, and then we can go about our Broncos picks after that?
Yeah, so my first one is going to be Michael Carter, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Those poor Cardinals, that backfield is just decimated with injuries so far. But Michael Carter really stepped up. He had 18 carries. He had 5 targets last week, and I feel like he emerged as that running back 1 in that room. They're going up against the Colts this week, which we talked about yesterday. The Colts are one of the biggest surprises of the NFL. They're 4-1 this year. They've had a solid defense to start. So I still think, just because the volume of a running back 1 is hard to argue with in fantasy, in my opinion, no matter the opponent. And if he's going to get 20, 23 touches again, I've seen him available in some of the leagues I'm in. I've seen him available around a lot of the leagues. I think that'd be a good pickup. And then looking at the tight end position, I'm looking at David Njoku for the Browns. He set a season high in almost everything last week. He had 6 targets, 6 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. And that's because the Browns went to Dylan Gabriel as their starter. And Dylan Gabriel, a lot of the CU fans in Denver like to hate on him and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Dylan Gabriel at all.
He's not the best quarterback. He's not the best quarterback. But he's on time and he's on target. And who does that benefit? That benefits his tight end. Gabriel's throwing the ball short a lot. And it really plays into Njoku's favor. I think that he's only going to keep climbing from here. You saw what he did last week. He got in the end zone for the first time. So I'm not saying Gabriel's the truth, but I'm saying from a fantasy perspective, he really benefits his tight ends and his receiving back. So I think Njoku's going to be a good pickup on the waiver wire this week as well.
Yeah, that's a great pickup. And for our Broncos pickup, these guys might already be picked up in your league. I assume they are, but RJ Harvey is my guy who's going to ball out this weekend. In the game against the Bengals, RJ rushed for 14, or he had 14 rushes for 58 yards and 5 catches for 40 yards. So a great game from RJ Harvey. He also had a touchdown in the air there against the Bengals. And then you're facing a similarly bad opponent in the Jets like the Bengals. So this will be one of those games that I see RJ Harvey really getting his feet on the ground and kind of dipping his toes in the water to what it's like to be an RB1. I could see JK kind of stepping on the side a little bit more and RJ Harvey leading the, full force of the offense right there. What do you have picked for the Broncos game, Trent?
I got Evan Ingram. We went over him earlier, so I'm not going to harp too much on it again, but I feel like they're going to get him going. 7 targets 2 weeks ago, 6 targets this past week. And he was drafted. I feel like he was kind of more of a later round pick, but then a lot of people gave up on him after 4 targets against Tennessee, 2 targets against the Colts, and then out with an injury against the Chargers. And I feel like a lot of people lost faith, especially because tight end is if you don't have one of the top tight ends, I know a lot of people who just kind of swap every single week and just wire it week to week. But if he's available, again, we've said it, Jets aren't that great. He seems like he's getting in the rhythm. Bo Nix seems like he's finding his connection with him. I'm expecting him to get 8 targets this week. I don't know about getting in the end zone, but 8 targets should hopefully get at least 10, 11 fantasy points in a PPR. If he's not picked up in a league, I think that'd be a good tight end to wire this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. We got some comments here. Agree with the logic, but it's going to be Troy Franklin. I like that. Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims, one of those guys who are going to be the X factor this week. Bo got to get in that Zen flow. Yes, he does. This is going to be one of those games where he really gets out there. I mean, we saw him look comfortable last week against the Eagles. Imagine what he's going to do against another team similar to the Bengals. It's kind of how you got to compare him to really poor defenses that he's going up against. This will be a great game to see Bo Nix ball out. Bo's body language was cool, calm, and collected last week. Zen is in at Gray Goody. So we got 2 disagreements here. I'm seeing confidence. I'm seeing Zen. We're going to see a calm game, aren't we, Trent, from Bo Nix?
And I like that. Maybe he showed a little nerves, little jitters kind of to open the game against Philly last week. But that fourth quarter, 2 touchdown drives, and a field goal drive. And it's not like these are like 20-yard drives. He's going down the field. He's converting 3rd and 15s. He's staring pressure in his face.
Yeah.
That looked like after a couple shaky weeks to start the season, that was the Bo Nix, the sophomore Bo Nix the Broncos fans were wanting to see. And he looked very mature. It looked like he grew up in front of everyone's eyes in that game, I feel like. But now you got to keep it going. You can't go out there and look cool, calm, and collected against the Eagles and then go out and get the bad footwork going and lose your mojo against the Jets.
Yeah.
You got to keep it going, and I think he can do that. So he showed that he can be the leader of this team for the future, and it was, like I said, it was great to see for all the Broncos people around.
Yeah, there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness, and we can't see him, mesh that line and switch over to cockiness where he's just, loosen up a little bit too much. But I'm excited to see him. It's going to be a great, great game. I'm excited to talk more about it coming up. We've got more to talk about, of course, this week as they go to London. It's going to be an early game, so make sure you're waking up as early as you can for that 7:30 a.m. kickoff. But that'll do it for today's episode of From the Nosebleeds. Thank you guys for joining me, Joey Gunnar, and Trent Finnegan. We'll be back with you guys again tomorrow, talking more Broncos, Buffs, Nuggets, Avs, everything going on in the Mile High City. And I can't wait to be back with you guys to do it. But until tomorrow, y'all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all later. Bye, y'all.